I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. I'm very excited about this one for multiple reasons. One, we have two people that were at the previous UFC event at UFC 271 in Houston on the panel today. And the other reason why I'm really excited is because one of my best buddies in MMA media has returned to the network. Let's give a warm welcome for Mr. Matthew Wells, who since our time together at Body Lock has gone on to be the co-founder and owner of MMA Junkie. So, Matt, what's up, man? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. Good to be back on with you guys. You know, I always have a good time with y'all.
Definitely, man. Definitely good to see you again. And of course, let's go ahead and introduce the two gentlemen that we know very well. We love them so much. We introduce them every week, despite the fact that we know them very well. So let's go in with the jack of all trades, who has mastered them all, the senior editor of SureDog.com, Ben Duffy. What's up, Ben?
I'm not doing so hot. As you alluded to, I attended UFC 271 in person this past weekend here in Houston, and partook in all the fight week activities and was, of course, on press row during fight night. And in the midst of that fight night, I got a text from my youngest son, 19 years old. He's a mixed martial arts fan, and Wells already knows what's coming. I get a text that says, "Holy shit, are you sitting right behind John Morgan?" Adam Duffy, I disown you.
The only reason why he saw you is because you had the same color shirt as John. So
I was trying to see if I could sneak by with like the junkie contingent, because they had like 17 people there, and I figured like nobody would notice if I went to their after party. But they found me out.
See, you next time you should wear pink, so that way it's a contrast.
Hey, I did that when I was there with my pink Hawaiian shirt, and everyone's like, "Oh, hey, you're on the broadcast." Yeah, I'm glowing.
And of course, we're going to introduce the man who anchors the panel every week with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of SureDog.com, also my good friend, Mr. Jay Petrie. What's up, Jay?
You know, I'm a little sad I couldn't make my way down to Houston to tag team with you boys, but from what I've heard, you guys had a fun time, even if it was just absolutely exhausting. And speaking of exhausting, our stat of the week is 45. 45 is a real wonderful, interesting, unique stat, because Roxanne Modafferi had her 45th MMA fight. She fought Casey O'Neill to a hard-fought split decision, I guess, because whatever. But it was a very entertaining fight. She gave it her all, and she had some great post-fight content too. And she hung up her gloves at the end of the fight in her 45th fight, which the reason why that is so significant, you know how many women have fought that many times in the sport? 0, besides Roxy. Most experienced female fighter in the history of MMA. And she is hanging them up. Godspeed, Happy Warrior. You had a heck of a career.
Definitely. We'll get back to Roxanne Modafferi a little bit later in the show, but let's go ahead and jump into some talk about the main event of UFC 271. Of course, that was between Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker for the middleweight title. Robert Whittaker came up short in his efforts to reclaim the belt. Now let's talk about that scorecard before we get into what happens with the division next, as Adesanya and Whittaker have some questions surrounding what is the next step for them. How did you gentlemen score it? Matt, I'll begin with you.
Well, I had it 3-2. I thought Izzy did his thing enough to win the fight, but he was very close. And, you know, the gentleman that was sitting to my left, I think it was in the third round, he leaned over and he was like, you know what, Izzy needs to stop playing around because he could be losing this fight. And I was like, you know what, you're actually kind of right, because this fight is like really close. And as the fight wore on, fourth round came, fifth round, I was like, you know what, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a split decision. I really wouldn't. Even though I scored at 3-2 for Izzy, depending on how sometimes these judges look at takedowns, it's like, man, they could give this fight to Whittaker. I mean, even though he didn't do much with them, controlling where your opponent is going, getting him to the mat, those kind of things weigh heavy in the judges' minds, depending on who you get, especially in Texas. I mean, we saw earlier in the night 2 split decisions that should not have been split decisions at all. Like, those were very easy 29-28 fights to score. But you never know what you're going to get in Texas. But to hear unanimous, I was a little shocked, to be honest with you. But, I mean, I still think they got it right. But I do like the game plan that Whittaker brought. It was entertaining to watch. It was strategic. It's not going to be one that I watch back again because, you know, there weren't too many like big moments. But in the moment, that night, watching it right there, I was like, this is a real high-level technical fight going on right now. And, you know, the first slip up could mean the end. And we almost saw it in the first round. But, of course, Whittaker got his wits about him and then carried it on for the full 25 minutes. But I think the right guy won.
All right, Ben, Jay, do you agree with that scorecard with 3-2 in favor of Adesanya?
I do. But the thing is, there were plenty of people on Twitter afterwards, and obviously MMA Twitter in the wake of any big fight, especially between a somewhat polarizing guy like Adesanya, you're going to have a bunch of garbage takes. Like, there's no robbery here. But rounds 2, 4, and 5 were each individually close enough that I don't agree, but I'm not like mad at someone who scored the fight for Whittaker, even if I really don't agree, because each of those 3 rounds could individually have been scored for Whittaker, depending on what you value. But I gave him the second and the fourth.
Well,
Jay,
I'm glad you said.
Oh, sorry, Joe. I was just going to intro you into it, but you got it, bro.
No, I'm really happy you said that because I'm of the mind that I'm with you, Wells and Duffy, that I agree that Adesanya won the fight, that the scorecard was just. Let me take it back. I agree that the scorecard was just. I scored it for Whittaker, but I have no issue with the Adesanya scorecard whatsoever. I think the only definitive rounds were 1 and 5, I felt. Obviously, the first round was Izzy with the knockdown and the outstriking him across the board and stuffing, I think, both of the takedown tries he had, even though one of them was half-hearted. And then Whittaker, you know, kind of bullying him a little bit around in the 5th round. I thought those were the only 2 rounds. Like, okay, I know who won this round. So that means that 2, 3, and 4 are up for grabs. And Twitter was a Twitter about how you could have a 49-46 scorecard. And I was bothered by that because they'd simultaneously argue, yeah, 2, 3, and 4 were close. So that means you could argue that one guy could get 4, even though it's very difficult to see that Izzy won that one, Izzy won 2, Izzy won 3, and Izzy won 4, or the other way around. I had Whittaker edging him out in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, mostly because of the takedowns and what he did to control Adesanya in that regard. When the striking totals were separated by like 1 strike in one round, 3 strikes in another round. I wasn't keeping score now, but, you know, having the ability to look back and go, wow, it was 15-16 in that round. You go to the scoring criteria of effective striking, effective grappling, and then you do the other intangibles like octagon control, whatever that means. So when I look at the takedowns, he didn't do anything with them because he couldn't keep Izzy down for more than, 30 seconds at the most, basically. But by putting Israel Adesanya in the position that he has to defend the takedowns, and he's going and he's pressing him against the clinch, maybe he's slipping in a couple shots. It's the razor's edge, of tipping the round in the other direction. But at the end of it, it was jabs versus leg kicks. If you otherwise, Israel Adesanya, I believe something along the lines of like 40% of his strikes were to the legs. So it's pick your poison. If you're mad about it, well, I don't know. What score would you be mad about, any of you guys, besides a 50-45?
If you said 50-45 for Whittaker, then I think you've lost your mind. That's the only scorecard where I'm like, okay, this is outrageous. I mean, quite honestly, 50-45 for Adesanya seems kind of silly too when you think about that 5th round. But I did see quite a few people with shutouts that they gave to Izzy. Like,
yes,
man, that kind of threw me for a loop. I had it 4-1 for Izzy. I gave him the 2nd round. I thought it was very close, but I'm not mad at it going the other way. I mean, there was no robbery there. There was no robbery whatsoever. But I think I think Adesanya is not doing himself any favors by fighting like this. I totally understand that you want to keep the belt and you play it safe to an extent. I get that, and that makes a lot of sense when you think about the money that's going to fall into your lap when you keep that belt, and especially when him just signing this new contract. If this is anything like the contracts that the UFC has dished out before, that they bragged about being big money ones, they're very dependent on whether or not you're the champion or whether or not you're ranked at a certain point or whatever. So yeah, with that in mind, yeah, if this is the difference between millions of dollars and 500K, yeah, I'm gonna play this really safe here. The problem is when you fight like that, you just open yourself up to losing these close decisions. And Whittaker, with some different direction in his corner in between rounds, telling him to press the issue a little more and put, especially in that 5th round where that fight ended very much like the Vettori fight that I keep making fun of, with him
Those
having
devastating
Adesanya
punches.
against the fence, and you're just hammer fisting and kneeing to the thigh as the last seconds wear away. Like, that's just not going to win a title. And it's not going to win you a close decision. But if you're Adesanya, it puts you in danger of fighting someone who's not going to just hammer fist and knee your legs in the last 10 seconds. That's going to put you in danger of losing that belt. So, I get that Adesanya has reached this level of dominance over his peers. He's clearly lapped the division, with Jared Cannonier being the obvious next guy. And off the top of my head, the only person in the title discussion that he hasn't already beaten. But well, except Sean Strickland, of course, too. But there's just, he's opening himself up to a lot of the same dangers that his nemesis John Jones has opened himself up to.
Okay, I'm happy you brought up Jones. Israel Adesanya was billed to be the next John Jones type. The destroyer, has no equal, all of the above. And we saw some holes in this game in this fight, and maybe I don't know if we saw holes in the Vettori fight. It wasn't like the Shevchenko Maya fight where Shevchenko lost the round. Everyone, and myself included, went, maybe she'll be dethroned along the way. But Israel Adesanya, this was a really tough, close fight. So I guess I'm not sure exactly which question to ask. So I'll ask one, I'll ask two, and see if you guys want to answer it. First of all, is this kind of performance hurting Izzy's legacy, or has he done enough to pass Chris Weidman as probably the second greatest middleweight ever? Go ahead, free for all. I know I'm going off script here.
Oh man, I know Matt's got something to say.
I think he's already passed Weidman, but I don't think these type of fights hurt his legacy either, because he's so dynamic in everything else that he does, and he is a dynamic talent overall. Overall, I think what we've seen, like, it kind of goes back to the Anderson Silva fight too, because you got the feeling he could have finished that fight at any time, but you also get the sense that he truly enjoys just being in there and trying out stuff and spending time in the cage. And you never get the sense, or at least I don't ever get the sense that he's not trying, so to speak. Like, you kind of like, he's always threatening with something. And it's like, in 1 minute, he can land like a kick out of nowhere that can rock his opponent, right? I do wish that, we saw a little bit more activity out of him in this fight in particular. But again, he's in there with Robert Whittaker, and he's just coming off of signing this huge deal. Like, he has to leave out of there with a win, right? So whatever he does next, I mean, he's got Cannonier on the horizon. That's a finishable fight for him, especially considering Cannonier just got finished by Robert Whittaker not too long ago. So I think that fight's going to produce some fireworks for sure, because Cannonier is going to go for it, and that's going to force Izzy to stay in the pocket and trade. And we saw that a couple of times in this fight. He stood in there with Robert a couple of times, but neither man wanted to get finished here. So it was just too high stakes going on, I think, in this one. And him being the character that he is carries him further than a couple of consecutive decisions, I think.
Yeah. Agreed. And I also agree with Matt that Cannonier is going to bring a fight to Izzy that is going to quiet a lot of this talk really quickly. I think it's going to be kind of the equivalent of when Ciryl Gane fought Derrick Lewis, because Gane had been on the streak of kind of just snake charming veteran fighters, like Alexander Volkov. Less veteran was Jairzinho Rosenstrike, but both of them just ended up staring at the lights for, like just deer in headlights for 5 rounds. And I was like, Derrick Lewis, that will not happen to him. Even if he gets finished, like, it's not like his paths to victory are going to require him to go after him. And that's going to be the same for Cannonier. Cannonier is going to come at Adesanya. And if he's good enough, great. If not, he's done for. But either way, we're going to have a hell of a fight.
Yeah, I'm envisioning like a Paulo Costa type moment with Cannonier's
Hopefully
aggression.
not all of the Paulo Costa moments.
Yeah, not the not the anal love that was shown in the post fight. Like definitely not the anal love, but
Yeah.
I think Izzy is and if it's Sean Strickland, I think the same sort of thing. When you fight the aggression with Adesanya style, that's when he really shines. Whittaker did a pretty cool thing by playing it halfway. He played it halfway during that whole fight, and Adesanya was forced to be offensive at times that he wanted to counter-strike, forced to counter-strike when he wanted to be offensive, and it just kind of kept him a little bit unsure of what was coming next. I don't think he's going to have that problem with Cannonier at all.
Well, think of the first fight with Whittaker. Whittaker was just very, we kind of talked about this last week, very uncharacteristic, bull rushing, chin up, throwing, not quite flailing, but not Robert Whittaker combinations. And it turned out to be a great, exciting fight because it got Israel Adesanya to be motivated and active and countering effectively and whatever. Whereas this Whittaker, this was the best possible game plan. And I would argue Whittaker fought a perfect fight other than getting dropped in the first round. Like, this was everything he could have done. Double up on the jab, keep Israel Adesanya not guessing, but cautious and respectful enough to not let loose any of his wild stuff. Like, there were a couple head kicks from each guy, but nobody really landed with one. And it was the best Whittaker could have done to win the fight. And it still wasn't enough.
Yeah. That's very, very telling of the level that Adesanya is at, because you think about how good Robert Whittaker is.
Look at what he did on the way up to get his title shot back.
I mean, that was very, very impressive stuff that he put together in his road back toward Adesanya. So, I mean, let's stay on that while we've got Whittaker on our minds here. He's got this now. He's got 2 losses against the champion. Looks like he's still head and shoulders himself above the rest of the division. What does the UFC do next with this man?
Man, it's so weird to say. He's 31 years old. So he's got, it's a middleweight. He's got 8 more years left, because Cannonier and Brunson, I think Cannonier's 37, Brunson's 38 or something like that. And they're the top of the division. So Whittaker, if his knees hold out, he's got plenty of time left in the clock, but he's already in the Rich Franklin position. He's already in the multiple losses to a champion that nobody wants to see another one. But what did Rich Franklin do after that fight? He moved up. I think he smoked the Michael Jordan BJJ just to have a little fun there. And then he went up to light heavy, which is not something Whittaker can do. Like, this is a guy who is a natural middleweight and is doing the thing that we wish more guys would do, move up to the weight class instead of killing themselves to drop down. And it's Whittaker can hold his own against anybody at 185. I mean, he held his own against Israel Adesanya. He won 3 rounds in my scorecard. He won 2 rounds on your guys' scorecards. That's not, getting blown out of the water. And there was a lot of talk about, moving divisions, you're going back down to welterweight. No thanks. I don't have any interest in seeing him do that. But I don't want to see him do crazy wackadoo fights up at 205. I don't want to see him fight Jan Blachowicz for a title shot or anything stupid like that. Exactly. Duffy, your face is exactly the right reaction to that sentiment. So what the hell do they do? I got to think you just keep churning and hope that Cannonier knocks him off or something like that, right? Hope that Strickland gets to him.
Here's another one right here.
Shoot.
How about he stays at middleweight and hopes that Adesanya really commits to 205?
I mean, he's at the level where Whittaker, he's already beaten he hasn't fought. I don't think he fought Vettori, no, but he beat Cannonier, he beat Brunson, He's got wins over other guys in the division that are
And he smokes
highly ranked.
Vettori, by the way. He
Oh, yeah,
smokes Vettori.
Is that then okay? Then I guess I'll ask you guys. I always do that wrong. Vittori Whittaker. Is that
fine
what
with
you want to go?
One thing that is kind of working in Whittaker's favor and the division's favor, frankly, is that while he's fought Adesanya twice, the second fight went in such a way that doesn't preclude a third. Considering that the UFC just about tried to give us Volkanovski versus Holloway 3, if the second Whittaker Adesanya fight had been the one where Whittaker just got starched in 2 rounds, it'd be game over. Like, Whittaker's never getting another shot.
Yeah.
The way it's going, if he strings together like 3 more impressive wins, it's not a hateful proposition because it was much more competitive the second time than the first. Like, he proved that he can make adjustments he proved that going back to the drawing board actually meant something for him. So it wouldn't be anybody's first choice, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could earn his way back to a third try.
It's the opposite of the Mighty Mouse Benavidez thing too, because Benavidez and Mighty Mouse fought to a really close split decision. I hope I'm not stepping on your toes, Matt. Okay, then go take it. Take the reins from here. Go.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. Exactly where I was going, because they had the 3 fights in between their second fight and everything. It was perfect thing there. But the difference, like as you were saying, is that he got finished in the first round the second time around. It took him 9 wins out of 10 fights to get that third shot, even though it wasn't against DJ. If Izzy stays there, I think the best way for him to get another shot at the title is for Izzy to go up to 205 again and that title be vacated, because I don't see him losing fights to Vettori. I don't see him losing fights to Sean Strickland. I don't see any of that happening. As long as he wants to stay around and just keep racking up these wins, I think it'll only take him maybe 3 at the most. 4 would be stretching it. I mean, if Izzy is on top, though, who knows? Because who knows what other contender emerges in that time as well. It could be a while, but it also could be really quick. There's just no real telling. The wild card of Izzy going up to 205 and challenging, I think, is something that would benefit him greatly, especially since Izzy would be moving up against a different champion as well. So I just thinking on paper, Israel Adesanya, Yuri Prochazka, if he wins that fight against Glover, that would be a crazy matchup. Crazy striking battle right there.
I would actually watch the UFC embedded like that week.
Yeah.
To see Yuri meditating in the middle of the forest and Adesanya buying insane outfits and watches. Yeah, I'm all over that.
You know what? Another thought that just came to mind here. The way the UFC is letting go of top tier talent, do you think that Robert Whittaker could be on the chopping block if they don't think he can get back to that title? And he's definitely a better paid fighter than a lot of the other division. Do you think they part ways with him?
It's the Liz Carmouche situation all over again. It's oof. Well, I want to see Whittaker versus Mousasi. So, okay. But then what? Then what? Then what do you do? You have him fight.
Jay really likes jabs.
I'd love to.
Melvin Manhoof.
Okay. I mean, seriously, that's like, do you want to see him fight Alexander Slamenko? I mean, if he can get back in the States again, I don't know if he's tested positive for anything in the last year or so. But then you got like Austin Vanderford. I don't want to see Robert Whittaker do that to Austin. So I hope not, just because the depth at 185 is not existing. I mean, Anatoly Tokov.
I mean, you really hope that guys like, guys like Andre Muniz really put together another strong series of wins and make noise on the way up doing it. Keep tapping people left and right. Keep breaking people's arms. People start to get interested and say, hey, maybe this guy should be in the title contention. You hope Kevin Holland can find some wrestling. Those are 2 names that come off the top that can be in that picture if they keep doing what they're doing. But if you look at the rest of the top 15, it's mostly guys that are just like, yeah, they're still here. Not really going to touch the champion. Not really going to touch Whittaker, but they're still here. So, you hopefully some of this new blood can keep doing their thing and climb up the ladder. That way we get that fresh competition that Izzy wants, because I am not interested personally in seeing him lap the division like he kept saying all week.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. All right, fellas, let's move on here because the co-main event had its own set of fireworks that we should give a little bit of shine to. Maybe this will just be, I'll just jump the gun and prepare my crow for our house taste my crow segment, because I definitely did not see Tai Tuivasa coming out the victor against Derrick Lewis, especially if the fight was fought in the way it was, and it was a Derrick Lewis fight all the way over until he got slept. Man, what is the ceiling on Tai Tuivasa as a star? I mean, he's in Houston, in Derrick Lewis's hometown, destroys the hometown guy, and to the thunderous applause of the entire arena. What's the ceiling for Tai Tuivasa?
You can't really move him down the division. Like, he just face planted Derrick Lewis at number 3. You can't make him fight Shamil Abdurakhimov or a Marcin Tybura. So they're kind of stuck. They're kind of stuck with and who is above Derrick Lewis? Stipe, who won't seem to take any fight other than a title fight. Cyril Gane, which the UFC hates fun, so that's what's going to happen. That's the fight they're going to make. And Ngannou. And do you want to see Ngannou versus Tai Tuivasa? Kind of, but not now, not yet. I mean, 5 knockouts in a row is impressive, but the Lewis one was what the magic happens. But I got to think the UFC has to finally realize we can market this guy. We can sell T-shirts that say Tuivasa, and you can have a brand. There's all kinds of things.
He has a brand. He was selling those like shoe-shaped beer cups like all week.
I saw in the right after he won the fight, he ran over to somebody and they held out the shoes, and the shoes happened to spell the logo of his new beer company. So this was very, very intentional and very intelligent. You got to lean into the kid, because at this point, why not? But we always talk about the short-sightedness of the UFC. So I'm telling you, I'm not happy about this. They're going to make him fight Cyril Gane. I can feel it in my plums.
If they don't sell that Tai Tuivasa shoe-shaped beer cup along with, like, give you a free UFC hot dog brander with it, somebody needs to lose their job. Like, that's a slam dunk and unnecessary stuff to have in your fight fan collection. My initial thought with Tuivasa beating Derrick Lewis was this reminded me a lot of Paulo Costa defeating Yoel Romero. This is a guy who, in my opinion, has improved and is certainly a strong competitor, but isn't necessarily skill-wise top tier, paired up with the right guy who's going to fight at the right style. And just because his ranking is higher, he's going, like, he plays into that style and it puts you right there. You can't go backward now. So Tuivasa likely gets title consideration, especially if we have John Jones stalling out for whatever he's waiting for to make his heavyweight debut. If we have Francis Ngannou still mad about his pay and having his back and forth with the UFC, and they have to come up with an interim title, it's probably going to be him and Stipe.
Oh my God, that's it.
But I don't think he comes out very, I don't like his chances in that. I don't like his chances against everyone else in the division as high ranked as he will be when the new rankings come out.
Well, despite the relative rankings and despite the MMA math that immediately comes to mind, if they were to match him up with Curtis Blaydes, I'm betting my car on Blaydes. I'm betting my kids' college education on Blaydes, especially the kid that was all impressed that I sat next to John Morgan. Like, fuck him.
Oh, pause. Dramatic effect. Yeah, Adam, come on now. Be better. Come on, Adam.
At least he didn't ask you for John Morgan's autograph.
I did get a picture with him though.
There you go.
Did you have a beer with him? Because that's the crowning achievement. You got to have a beer with John.
Nobody wants to have a beer with me. I don't know why.
You show him the old episode.
I had a beer with you.
John was a guest on the show.
Yeah,
I should do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was back when he had the black background, so he was just like the floating head of Oz, in the middle of all the blackness. That was great.
And it was like such an important time as far as what was going on in the sport. So to have John right there, that was like a looming presence. He was like Zordon. It was like Zordon in Power Rangers or something. Is that his name, Zordon? The big head?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got that right. All right, man. I'm sorry, we were stepping all over your toes here, man. What are your thoughts here on Tai Tuivasa?
Man, it's tough because like you've said, I mean, he just flattened Derrick Lewis in Houston, and the crowd loved it. So it's like, even Dana in his post fight was like, yeah, you got to put him up there with those guys, the Cyril Gans, the Stipes now. Like, you have to. I mean, that was that type of moment to really thrust himself way up the rankings. I mean, he came in, UFC official rankings has him at 11. Well, now you've got to be looking at 4, 3 or 4. I mean, that's a huge jump, but it makes sense. And I think I like his chances to win against those top guys, but the difference is going to be when he faces those top guys, they're not going to get as wild as Derrick is. I think that was the issue with Derrick, is that he went out there and chased that finish too quick, too fast. And it was pretty unlike a Derrick Lewis performance, who we usually see wait till 14 minutes and 46 seconds of the third round before he starts looking for the knockout. He went out there and chased it and got wild, got sloppy, started swinging punches from his freaking ankles and got clipped. I don't see that happening with the Curtis Blaydes, to Duffy's point. I don't see that happening with Stipe for sure. And we know sure as hell Cyril Gane's not going to do that. So that's when it comes to be a tougher fight for him to win, when he doesn't get involved in these wild brawls, because he proved it in the Greg Hardy fight. Hey, you can clip me, but I'm still going to be right here to throw bombs right back at you. And he did that in this fight with Derrick Lewis too. When Derrick was on top of him, swinging those punches from the backside mount, I was like, oh, Tuivasa's going out right here, and Houston's about to go crazy. No, Tuivasa got up swinging. That was the wildest thing I've ever seen, I think, in a heavyweight fight. So as long as he fights these guys that are at the top, that are going to stick to game plans and won't get wild, won't get sloppy, he's going to have a tough go at it to break through for a title shot.
This is going to sound weird, but I almost like his chances to beat Ngannou more than most of the other guys that are in the top 5.
If he can draw a brawl out of him, man, oh man, it's anybody's game here.
Like, he's more likely to get the moment he needs against Ngannou than against like Stipe or Gane or Blaydes. Like with Blaydes, he's going to have to submarine him on a shot, like with a knee or like an uppercut, like Derrick did.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, Francis still leans a lot on his power and knows how devastating it is. So he's more likely to just hang around where he shouldn't and try to land his own bomb. Stipe knows better. Like, he's too good of a wrestler to just stand there and just wait to get hit. Same thing with Curtis Blaydes. And you're talking about two guys who have been knocked out before, so they know the consequences of sticking their chin out where it doesn't belong. And Ngannou has not felt that yet. So yeah, I definitely think that makes a lot of sense.
I just wish that Ngannou wasn't out for so long, because the interim title is definitely coming, and Tai's in it. But yeah, I think of the two, I think between Gane and Stipe, I think that Stipe is the more winnable fight for Tuivasa, because I mean Stipe is going to be 40 by the time, if they fight this summer or something like that. Stipe will be 40, and he's a different kind of heavyweight than a lot of the other heavyweights, because he has a full-time job and does all kinds of other things along the way, very injury prone. So he's a different 40 than a Chet Congo, who might actually be 51 kind of thing. Man, yeah, I want to see Stipe Tuivasa now, and I wonder, do you guys think that Stipe would take that fight?
No,
I don't think he would either.
No, unless it's an interim belt. That's the only way he takes it.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
Yeah. All right, fellas, let's keep things pushing here. We're going to move on to quick hits. We're going to have 30 seconds to answer these questions. I'm going to let our guest this week pick which question he'd like to go, and then us three will pick from the rest.
Let's see. I guess we're talking about the Joe Rogan one, right?
All right. Oh yeah, but any of the 4 that we have there. If you want that one,
yeah,
take
it.
I mean, let's just go there, right?
All right, cool.
Let's
All
go
right,
there.
and here we go. You got 30 seconds. Oh wait, the prep time. I forgot. It's prep time that counts down 10 seconds because I was working out with this the other day. So
prep my thoughts.
Yeah.
Prep
Can
my
I
thoughts.
ask a question first?
You gonna lead me in?
Oh, I was
Matt.
waiting for the bell.
Yeah, Matt, Joe
Oh
Rogan.
yeah. Oh, I gotta ask a question.
That's what I was trying to say.
Oh, that's what I was like. What, Jay? What are you talking about? All right. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so yeah, here we go. All right. Joe Rogan did not call UFC 271 with the excuse of a quote unquote scheduling conflict. Called BS by Dana. Are you surprised he wasn't there?
No, I'm not at all surprised he wasn't there because whether it be his decision or the UFC's decision or Disney's or ESPN's decision, it was just best to sit on the sidelines for this one, let the dust settle, let it get out of the headlines for a little while. And then people, when he shows up at the next pay-per-view, people will, not worry about it. Because if he showed up at this one, everyone would be waiting. When is he going to talk about it? Where is that moment going to come? So I'm glad he wasn't there for this one.
All right. Good one right there, Matt. Okay.
Oh, hold on. I want to ask you
what's
guys
up, man?
something. What were they chanting when they were chanting Joe Rogan? I couldn't hear. I just
Free Rogan or something.
Rogan.
Free Joe Rogan. See, I didn't know if it was free him, F him, some other word. I just heard something Joe Rogan, and I couldn't decipher it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Free Joe
Free
Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
Free Joe Rogan.
Yeah. All right. This is the new Let's Go Brandon. Okay.
Last I checked, he was free, but anyway.
Yeah, I think no, he's not free. He's 100 millionaire.
All right, let's see here. I think Ben, I'll give you this one because you've definitely, I know you've had quite a few conversations with her. How will you remember the career of Roxanne Modafferi? You have 30 seconds on the bell. I should have pressed that so the prep time winds down as I was reading the question, but I messed up, so it's all good. I hope you still remember the question. Roxanne Modafferi, let's go.
In 30 seconds, my goodness. Obviously a pioneer. Not a stretch to call her a living legend. One of the most genuinely kind and approachable people in the sport in any capacity. Fighter, trainer, media. One of the ultimate overachievers in the history of the sport. Did more with less physically and reinvented herself multiple times. Just really an example of a great mixed martial artist.
All right, definitely fond memories for Roxanne Modafferi. So, all right, Jay, you're up next. How much do you think Derek Brunson's talk of retirement played into the loss to Cannonier? And of course, I did it again. I pressed the prep time.
Prep time.
Yeah, prep time. Maybe I'll just take the prep time off. Here you go. Bell's about to ring.
I didn't know about it until after I had already written my betting column suggesting to bet on Derek Brunson as the underdog because Juan Brunson has been springing upsets like crazy. But he's got one foot out the door already. He seemed off in there after about a minute into round two. I couldn't figure it out. I think I wrote in the Short Dog play-by-play, looked like he was fighting underwater. I don't know if it was fatigue or something, but there was something off, and it looked like he was checked out. So I think so. I think it played a factor.
All right.
I went over because I didn't know how much the prep time.
Yeah, I'm screwing up the clock big time today. That's my fault. All right, so I'm gonna press start.
Hey,
now.
real quick,
Yeah,
before we
what's up?
move on.
Please.
I did not see. They just sent out the VNR from the show. Did his towel being thrown in come through on the broadcast? Did they say anything
Yes.
about that?
It did.
Yes.
It did. Like the very
Okay.
corner of it, and one of the angles they had, it came through.
And he was
Okay.
already unconscious by the time the towel floated down onto the
But it
mat.
was
No, from K's
from-
side, it was like the way they threw it. It looked like it was going all the way to the ceiling, and like it was
Well,
just like
yeah, it arced.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It
what happened.
hung in the air. It was like a Rocky IV moment.
yeah, exactly. It
and
was
like for
crazy.
me, it was hard to tell that was a towel that like obstructed vision of the camera. It just I just saw something go by and I couldn't tell what it was.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna
Brunson's soul.
here we go. I'm gonna press start
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
This was the Brendan Schaub moment.
Yeah.
All right, so the prep time is winding down, and at 35 with 42 fights in his career, is this the best version of Bobby Green that we have ever seen? I'm going to say that this is not the best version of Bobby Green that we've ever seen. I'm going to say this is the most consistent version of Bobby Green that we've ever seen because this is what he's always been capable of doing. Him at his best years ago would style on people the way he did on Saturday night. He has continually done this, but he's also found himself the fight after doing something really bizarre. I think back to that Edson Barboza fight. When Edson Barboza was a killer at 155, Bobby Green gave him some work, but he was too busy clowning, too busy talking to focus on the task that was at hand. So, yeah.
There was something one of my friends, Petey, one of the Sherdog staff members, said about Bobby Green's performance. And he said that Bobby Green was out there jazz boxing. Like he was in his flow completely. Boom, boom. It was, I really appreciated that because I thought, yeah, that's exactly what was happening.
Yeah. Like Bobby Green at his best gives anybody at 155 a rough day. It's just until lately, we don't know which version of him is going to show up.
Yep. I mean, if I may, like for the longest time, I kind of equated Bobby Green with Michael Johnson. And I don't know. Did that make me racist? I don't know. Like, because I mean, there are certain parallels. You know, they're two black dudes in the same general weight class, same general skill set, but and would seem to overachieve or underachieve from one fight to the next. But I think that's wrong. I've come around to think of him more like pre-breakthrough Jorge Masvidal, where it's just waiting to happen. It's just because he's an engaging enough guy on the mic and he's dazzling at his best in the cage. It's just waiting for him to kind of string together the right couple of wins to make that next step. And that same kind of Masvidal-like mid-career reinvention as a much bigger star. In all the fights, all the events I've covered live, from small local shows all the way up to UFC shows, there's only twice that I flipped my pick on a fight based on just the intangible energy a fighter was giving off during fight week. It was Lando Venata last year at UFC 262 and Bobby Green this week. Because before, I was like, this is exactly the kind of fight that Bobby Green will find a way to lose a split decision. Just spend a little too much time admiring his handiwork, not land enough volume, just a little too much dancing, not enough punching the other guy in the face, even after the Iaquinta fight. But just hearing him last week, I was like, nope, like Green is serious. And yeah, he put on a show. He, again, for the second fight in a row, kind of showed us the best of what he has to offer in the octagon. And maybe this is his moment. I'm not saying he's the next Masvidal in that he becomes arguably the biggest star in the sport overnight, but it could be a really big year for him this year.
I mean, I'd argue he's 6-1 in this last 7. Like I definitely scored the fight against Thiago Moises for him. And there was an argument. I don't think he won it, but he fought Happiest, who was a rising star, right to the bitter end. I mean, the Jorge Masvidal parallel is pretty excellent, actually, because it's the potential finally. It's like when your high school teacher and your guidance counselor like, oh, we knew you had so much potential, and he's finally at 35 years young, finally putting it together, putting the pieces together, and doing a little more in the cage. Because that was always what you would say on your Scream of the TV Fighter, is that if he did more, he would win these fights. And he did more. He destroyed his strike record. I think it was like 188 significant strikes or something ridiculous. And yeah, he's Bobby Green, man.
Yeah.
Who knew we'd be talking about him now?
His hands are trouble, man.
Yeah, that is a bad dude when he gets fired up, man.
I tweeted out during the event, and it actually seemed to go over pretty well. The nicest thing I can say about Bobby Green is that his hands are as fast as he thinks they are.
Yeah.
Just makes it so effortless with hands at the waist, just slipping and just nailing people. Hit the dude 3 times on his way in. Yeah, just beautiful stuff.
Yeah. Then one thing that I find fascinating about Bobby Green and fighters like him too, that I don't think people quite understand unless you've been in the gym and you sparred with someone who has similar attributes. Man, a lot of times that showboating, the talking, the punches from odd angles and all that stuff, the hands down, that can be very confusing from a technical standpoint. It's not necessarily just the verbal back and forth. It's not necessarily just someone, saying, hey, your punches are soft, your punches are weak, and you're trying to deal with it. It's sometimes it's just the fact that you can't tell what's coming next. The shoulders are dipping in a particular way, the head is moving as they talk. You can't quite get a line on them. I can remember a sparring session I had with a guy who trained at Black House, and you talking about I got the break speed off me. I couldn't tell what the hell this guy was doing half time. I know, honey. I know. Daddy actually lost his sparring session. It was bad. It was bad. But like that was the more that I mean, he stuck his hands out. He had like a Roy Jones sort of swag about him. And I couldn't tell what was coming next simply because everything was just so unconventional because he was so busy, like, you know, kind of taunting and, you know, moving in weird ways and whatnot. So Bobby Green doing that at such a high level is a very, very dangerous thing and a hard thing to overcome if you're such a by the book fighter like Hasbrat is. Like he's someone who's kind of meat and potatoes. He's just going to do the fundamentals right. Man, that can confuse the mess out of you. I love to on the broadcast how they're talking about how he was not going to fall into the trap of Green's mind games and he wasn't going to do it. And then sure enough, he gets his face busted up the end of the first round and they have that little square off. And then he spent the rest of the fight like trying to one up him in this pseudo boxing match. So like Bobby Green, man, he's got it. He's got it. I'm very much looking forward to him, you know, fully putting things together on a consistent basis, like he has been lately.
I don't know if it will be merited for many occasions, but a lot of the guys in like the lower top 10 and 15, they're fresh matchups and they're fun. Like him and Brad Riddell, that would be a blast. I mean, he and Fizzy have already fought Dan Hooker. Just Tony Ferguson, you can see just that kind of fun striking match. And I mean, if we're going way too far, Michael Chandler, that's a little too high up. But just they're fresh matchups and they're interesting. So I like that when there's a fighter on the rise who has, you know, been around a long time, but still has a lot of new foes to take on as they work their way up and they're finally putting them together. So I'm excited about Bobby Green, and that's something I wouldn't have said 2 years ago. Because we'd be like, oh yeah, he barely skips by Clay Guida, but he loses a lackluster thing to Francisco, 100 years old Trinaldo, so no one cares. But this is an interesting Bobby Green time, I think.
Agreed. All right, fellas. So we're gonna keep things pushing. I'm really anxious to get to the greatest title segment in all of media history. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. This is where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not over the course of the past week. Let me just go ahead and jump the gun on this one. I had another one kind of prepared, but I'm missing the obvious one. I'm missing the very obvious. I'm not surprised. I was going to go with some Bellator talk, but man, the UFC commentary team this weekend. We all know the drama behind the scenes as far as Joe Rogan not being there due to the issues that we went in great detail about last week. But man, how is it that Joe Rogan can influence the commentary team on his day off? How is it
I'm
that
so
this man
happy you brought that up.
can send a text message and have them all shook up with a horrible medical diagnosis? Dr. Joe Rogan, the man who cured COVID, misdiagnosed a broken hand. This is fantastic. I love it. I was in tears laughing as the broadcast team was fumbling over themselves trying to mention this broken hand and how Joe Rogan was able to text from his quote unquote scheduling conflict. What a beautiful time to be a fight fan.
And Eugene Behrman talked on the MMA Hour today. I was like, no, that ain't it.
All right, Matt, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Man, it's nothing that has to do with the fights themselves because they all kind of played out to my expectations in one way or another, even if I got, a pick wrong. Like I thought Derrick Lewis was going to win, but, I thought Tai Tuivasa was also very capable. The most surprising thing for me, but yet unsurprising, ironically, was the fact that the story all week long was Israel Adesanya signed this gigantic new contract. And unsurprisingly, not a single detail was revealed, despite our best efforts to ask questions about it. So it's just one huge, just trust me, bro. It's just ridiculous. It's like the lack of transparency, and then the fact that he believes in trickle-down economics as well. It's unfortunate that that's what we have to deal with in the MMA space. The only way that this could possibly work as a trickle-down thing is that if all of the managers are in a group text together and they all know the details about all these contracts behind the scenes, and they all agree to, hey, we're going to support each other in solidarity as managers behind the scenes with no details being available publicly.
And we know the Kaur brothers and Ali are not in a group text thread.
They're
Yeah,
tight.
exactly.
Unless there's lawyers involved too. So Ben, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Were you going to talk about Dhiego Lima, Jay? Okay. Dhiego Lima, the other Lima brother, even if I don't say that in quite as dismissive a way as one might have said that, 3 or 4 years ago. But I mean, nonetheless, like the less accomplished, less well-known brother of former Bellator welterweight champ Douglas Lima announced his retirement just 4 or 5 days ago. It's surprising for several reasons. One, he's 33 years old, which even at welterweight, pretty much right in the prime of his career, and was actually in the prime of his career. He had turned a corner in the last year or two that, he wasn't a contender, but he was on his way up. Like, it's a strange time, like a legitimately surprising time for him to retire. And he actually had a fight scheduled for the summer or later in the spring. So yeah, I'm completely surprised. I know that he's got his thing going on. Like the Lima brothers have their gym in greater Atlanta that's doing quite well, but just a very unexpected retirement from someone who had not had any public severe health issues that we knew about and did not appear to lack for motivation. Again, as I said, he had been on the way up in the competitive sense. So yeah, kind of interesting.
Yeah, good one there. Jay, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Okay. So I'm not surprised that when you, the audience, view this broadcast, it will be 11 days before this event happens. And likely what I'm about to say will be the first you're hearing of it. And that is why I am not surprised and or extremely surprised, Mr. Falcons, because the circus is in town on February 25th for Americans, 26th for Thai and Southeast Asia. Fight Circus 4 is coming back. And I don't know how much you know about it, though. Mr. Duffy has been, I believe he saw the lineup, but I have the official lineup. I'm still waiting on some confirmation from the team about like location, like if it's in the Fairtex gym like it was before. But otherwise, here we go. The first fight, I'm going to give you a lineup of the fight card. We don't know many of the participants, so we're just going to go by the fights and the rules. The first fight is called Tattoo Muay Thai. Now, I don't know if that means the loser gets a tattoo, but I think what it means is the loser gets a tattoo. I'm guessing. So that one said, okay, just a Muay Thai fight where there's a tattoo involved in some capacity.
So it's Paul Woodley, all right?
Sure, we'll go. That's I'm good with that. I go to riff on that. The second fight will be a continuation of their Siamese twins. I'm using quotes because the term itself, I'm sure, is outdated and whatnot. But where they will tape two fighters together, tape two other fighters together, put a giant oversized t-shirt on each, put kickboxing big 14-ounce gloves on them, and have a kickboxing match 2-on-2. So that's coming back again, and we're very excited about that. The third match is going to be called Triple Threat, in which two competitors will have to sing. They're going to sing a song, and they're going to be judged on it. They'll have to have a dancing competition, and then they fight each other. And then the judging will commence on who is the victor of the Triple Threat competition. So
they are leaving gold on the table. They should have them fight first and then sing and dance.
See,
like busted mouth, busted leg, and now you got to have the talent portion of the competition. Shit.
I mean, there's so much. This is the proof of concept. I'm sure they're gonna hear what we're talking about and go from here. The next fight is something.
How do you even judge that? Like, what if a guy puts on like a Prince like performance and then gets KO'd like instantly? Like, who wins?
Then you're gonna have to rule striking versus Purple Rain, and you're gonna have to go from there.
I love that Wells is like here for the actual nuance of this. Like, diving right into the hypothetical.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
There's an implicit acceptance of the concept in the fact that you're already addressing the specifics. I like this.
The next fight is called Heads or Tails. They might be heads versus tails. So the fighters flip a coin. The winner chooses whether they want to use their hands and their elbows, so their fists and elbows, and that's all they can use, and the other person can only use kicks or knees. So that's kind of a fun dynamic there. It's all decided by the toss of a coin. Then after that, there is a team Indian leg wrestling competition, which I'm not sure if that means there will be multiple people competing at once or if they're going to be competing representing teams. But Indian leg wrestling, they lay on their back, they lock their legs together and try and pull the other one around. They're all Instagram fitness models, like women named Jen the Tiger and Hell Girl. So it's bunkers. There will be a kicking only match again because those are actually some of the best fights in the card. They usually do style versus style, like karate versus Muay Thai, and they kick the crap out of each other quite literally. Well, maybe not literally. There's something called car jitsu that's on the table. I don't believe it's going to be like Street Fighter, where they're beating a car up to break the parts off to see if they can do it in time, although maybe that'd be awesome. I'm guessing it's going to be a pre-taped fight. This is my speculation. A pre-taped match where they put two grapplers inside of a vehicle. They put the seats up or something, and then they have a grappling match inside of this confined space. That is my speculation on what this is going to be for car jitsu. The penultimate, second to last fight is called Foot in the Tire Boxing. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory if you want to think about it. There's the tire. They each put one foot in there, and they have to slug it out, and I'm guessing the person gets knocked out of the tire loses. So just pure mayhem. And the final fight in the card is a Fight Circus staple we've come to love, a 2-on-1 fight, and it will be instead of MMA like many times before, or a UFC vet like Will Chope taking on two featherweights and wrecking them, by the way. It will be a Muay Thai fight. So there's going to be some pain involved, and it's going to be quite beautiful. So that is the 9-fight lineup of Fight Circus 4, subject to change. I'm sure things might move around, and it will be glorious, and I will be here for it, and I hope you guys are too.
Yeah, COVID, stay away from this one, please. Stay away. Let this happen, please, COVID. All right, gentlemen, let's move on here. Bellator 274 is going to feature the first non-title, non-tournament 5-round headliner from Neiman Gracie and Logan Storley. Was this the right fight to make this change?
I'll just keep it short. Hell no. Hell no. This could be the most boring. I mean, Bellator has produced some boring ass main events throughout its 10 years in organization. This has the potential to be one of the worst, but I'm hoping that Gracie can just go out there and slap on a submission and we can all go home early.
Ben, any thoughts on this being the unveiling of a change in rules at Bellator?
I agree with Matt that this has all the potential to be like visual Valium for us. I mean, on a competitive level, if it plays out anything like Gracie versus Ed Ruth, at least it's a fight where those 4th and 5th rounds might make a difference in terms of attrition and one fighter losing because of fatigue. But aside from that, yeah, I'm as big a Logan Storley booster as you will find. I've interviewed him like 4 times at this point, and yeah, like his fights are not always compelling viewing, and this has the potential, unless he loses spectacularly, to be one of those. So yeah, weird test case for this new rule change.
What do you guys think about it being a head-to-head with the UFC?
That part they at least did smartly, because they finished about 2 hours, like an hour or two after.
I think I think the UFC starts 2 hours before Bellator.
Yeah, and then also this card that they're up against temporarily is just not the business. So it's two fairly mediocre MMA products against one another. Of course, the fights themselves in either card could end up being spectacular, but based on name value, you can go
it's going to Golden Corral. Like, none of it's that good, but there's a whole ton of it.
Yeah,
and you
like
can
that
just
popcorn shrimp.
And speaking of Golden Corral, Justine Kish is fighting again. Don't think about that too long.
All right. Oh wow!
In Bellator against Deanna Bennett. Get your vitamin D.
Well,
oh boy.
Well, you said that. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the UFC card that will be airing at the same time as Bellator. At least there'll be some overlap there. The main event takes place between Johnny Walker and Jamahal Hill. This was actually bumped up to main event as over the weekend it was announced that the original main event between Rafael dos Anjos and Rafael Fiziev,
Fiziev.
Fiziev?
there we go.
Yeah, Fiziev.
That, yeah, was moved to co-main in its own 5-rounder, another pay-per-view. So, gentlemen, what do we think of the product that's going to be put before us Saturday? Is this a good headliner?
It's better than Smith versus. Actually, no. That's. Let me ask you this: is this a better headliner than Smith versus Spann, which was a recent unexpected headliner?
No, this is worse than Smith versus Spann.
I think so too.
Like Johnny Walker's lost three of his last 4.
Yeah,
and he's headlining, and he's like, I think he's like a plus 210 underdog right now. Like the fight, like Johnny Walker has settled into what he is. He's exciting mid-card fodder. Like this is one of the weaker main events on paper that the UFC has ever thrown out there. And in this era of COVID, like to book a headliner between like a Brazilian and a Kyrgyzstani by way of Thailand, you're just courting disaster. Like, of course, this thing was going to get pushed back. There's a reason Tai Tuivasa has been training in Abu Dhabi for the last year, because he knows how treacherous it could be to get his visa if he stays in Australia. Like, you know, like, of course, this fight was going to get pushed back.
You know what? Am I crazy for saying this, man? I think if you're going to do this, if you're going to keep this card together after taking away action wise and ranking wise stuff, a very, very good main event. Why not? If you're just going to throw anything on the top of the card, why not Jim Miller and Nicholas Mata? You know, give Jim Miller a main event. At least there's some upside there. A guy who's been in the promotion for God knows how long. A guy who also, I think, with this fight, I think he will at least tie the record for most UFC appearances.
I think he'll reestablish himself as the top.
Okay,
if not going to 39, I need to look real quick.
So at least there will be some historical significance to it. Jim Miller.
Hold on, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry to interrupt you. There is massive historical significance because it is the widest discrepancy in octagon experience ever. You know, I think this will be Jim Miller's 39th fight. This is Nick Mata's UFC debut.
Yeah, I mean, granted, you know, having a UFC debut and you're, you know, an up and coming prospect, your main event debut probably not the best idea, but I would do it for Jim Miller as opposed to just kind of slopping anything together in the hopes that somebody with a mohawk does a flying knee.
If I could wax poetic on Jim Miller for just 1 second, I feel like they're running out the clock on him. I do feel like the UFC isn't giving Jim Miller the perhaps respect or whatever word you want to use that he deserves or merits or something. Because this will be the second UFC newcomer he's fighting in a row. And this is a guy that, sure, he's not in the top whatever of his division, but is he the Contender Series gatekeeper? Is that what Jim Miller is being used for? I know that was the dentist. Oh gosh, what was his name? Darren Stewart was being used as the Contender Series guy. He fought like 7 Contender Series guys in his 9 last fights or so. But I feel like they're doing Jim Miller dirty by not matching him
like the old man that gives you your cart when you walk into Walmart.
Yeah. I feel like this feels like the UFC is trying so hard to have a passing of the torch fight with Jim Miller. They're putting up against anybody that think they can possibly book and boost him, like a Joe Solecki, Roosevelt Roberts, Ghost Pepper Gonzalez. Like it feels like the UFC is just using him to put other guys over. And I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like I would rather see him. I just want to see him fight guys like we were talking about Rashad Evans and what Eagle FC should do next for him. Well, the next fight for him should be Sam Alvey. I said Vitor Belfort in the broadcast, but now Sam Alvey's a free agent. Similar experience. You can build a rematch, whatever. It's not young Thundercat versus 38-year-old post-Lyme disease Jim Miller, who knows what he's got left in the tank, but he's still got a wicked punch. And the last thing I'll say about Jim Miller, on the broadcast, when he was fighting Eric Gonzalez, Brendan Fitzgerald was talking about Jim Miller still got that power in that hand, and commentator Michael Bisping at that second goes, no, I don't think he, boom, knockout, one punch knockout. So I don't know where I was going with there, but I think Jim Miller deserves some more love, and I wouldn't be mad if he had gotten the main event spot in.
Yeah, just a random thought there. One other thing that I wanted to mention about this whole card before we wrap things up. Joaquin Buckley and Abdul Razak Al Hansen promises to deliver some sparks. I'm particularly interested in this simply because I believe this is the first time that Buckley will be like at a consistent gym. I think he's going to be I think he's training with Extreme Couture for this one, and from my understanding, he had a little trouble just kind of establishing himself around the St. Louis area. Like he kind of made bad at a few places, including like James Krause's gym. Yeah, so I'm curious if we saw what Extreme Couture was able to do with Francis Ngannou. They have revitalized a few guys. Buckley, who kind of stalled after coming out hot with that spinning back kick knockout. Maybe this is a rebirth, so we'll see. I mean, he certainly has an action opponent in front of him, so I think the best elements of both gentlemen will have the opportunity to shine. Any other thoughts on the card Saturday, or in general, before we wrap things up, fellas?
No, I actually am not too upset at the main event. I think it's a good opportunity for Jamahal Hill to really establish himself as one of those guys who can go out there and get finishes and get wins. It's not the best, it's not the ideal main event by any means, but I think it's good enough that can produce a highlight reel moment. And that's really what you want in these situations, right? You want somebody to go out there and do something spectacular. So he can do it. But other than that, man, this card is, I mean, aside from the Al Hassan and Buckley fight, like you said, like that's really all I'm looking forward to for the most part. I mean, there's some other names I kind of want to see how they perform, you know, like Jessica Rose Clark, how's she going to do? Chaz Skelly, since I've just watched his fights for seemingly his entire career. But it just feels like it's another week. We got to get through these fights and then do it again next week.
Yeah, this is definitely one that's just happening because it needs to happen. So all right, fellas. Well, that will do it for this edition of the Living Death Show. Remember to like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Big thanks to the homie Matt Wells for showing up on the broadcast yet again. Looking forward to having you back on. Looking forward to our next silly conversation. So always good to see you. And of course, Jay and Ben holding it down every week. Much love to the two big homies. Now, check them out, sherdog.com. There will be some Fight Night content that both of these gentlemen will be producing. Of course, as the co-founder and owner of MMA Junkie, Matt might give himself the weekend off. I don't know. This guy is moving up in the world. But he might do some
assistant managing editor before you get me in trouble.
I'm gonna tell Simon that that's what you told me before we went on. In fact, let me text Simon right now. All right, so I got to get off air so I can text Simon. So remember, stay beautiful, stay positive, stay texting people about broken hands that didn't exist, and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.